On Halloween night, October 31st, 2012, Rebecca was excited. Her trailer was decorated, her 3-year-old son, Conway, had picked out his costume, and they were all set for a fun evening of trick-or-treating. But when Rebecca didn't show up for work that morning, something that was very unlike her, her friends and fiancé grew worried. They decided to check on her, only to find her car parked in an unusual spot and her favorite handbag, which she never left behind, still in her locked trailer. Inside, things didn't look right. There were signs that something had gone wrong, a few unsettling details that hinted at trouble. As detectives started piecing together what happened, they found out that Rebecca had opened her door that morning to someone she knew well. The events that followed would uncover a shocking betrayal that left her community in disbelief. Rebecca Gay was born on March 26, 1988, in Midland, Michigan, United States. Her parents were a well-respected couple in their community. Thomas, her father, a certified welder and a devout man, was known for his equestrian skills and passion for raccoon hunting. The couple had married on April 3, 1976, and raised 4 children, and they were seen as a close-knit family. Despite this image, Rebecca's parents eventually separated, a transition that proved challenging for everyone involved. Rebecca excelled in high school, showing a clear affinity for her father's love of horses by joining the equestrian team. Known as a kind-hearted and serene young woman, she prioritized family above all. Her compassionate nature was evident through her volunteer work. She even participated in archery events to help raise funds for underprivileged families. As she embarked on her young adult years, Rebecca fell in love, though details about her relationship remained scarce. Around the same time, her mother found companionship with John Douglas White, a newcomer who quickly became central not only to their lives but to the broader community as a local church pastor. Born on May 20, 1957, John had served in the U.S. Navy in his youth and later worked as a long-haul truck driver. By 1980, he was living in Battle Creek, Michigan with his first wife. However, John had a troubled history, including alleged mental health issues that he often cited to excuse violent behavior. During this period, John formed a friendship with 17-year-old neighbor Teresa Morris, inviting her one day to his basement to view an impressive electric car track. Trusting him, Teresa agreed to see it. Once inside, she realized there was no track, and when she turned to ask, John unexpectedly stabbed her under her right shoulder blade. In shock, Teresa saw his sinister grin as he relentlessly attacked her, delivering over 15 stab wounds and strangling her to stop her breathing. John expressed regret in chillingly sexist terms, claiming it was her fate simply because she was a woman. Miraculously, Teresa survived and later identified her attacker, exposing his hateful words during the assault. John was promptly arrested and charged with attempted murder. In court, he attempted to display remorse, admitting guilt and requesting psychiatric help instead of prison time. The judge, however, highlighted Teresa's survival as miraculous and sentenced John to up to 10 years, urging mental health treatment while incarcerated. Prosecutors assured Teresa that John would never harm her or anyone else again, a promise that, unfortunately, Teresa believed. John appealed his sentence, arguing that his defense had not sought an insanity plea due to financial constraints. The court granted a new trial in 1983. Prosecutors then offered a deal. If John pled guilty and agreed to psychiatric treatment, he'd serve only 2 years. He accepted, and by 1985, he was free. Teresa, unaware of the deal or his release, was horrified when she encountered him in public. Though he briefly attended psychiatric sessions, there was no lasting supervision, allowing him to resume a seemingly ordinary life. In the early 1990s, John was employed in maintenance at a textile company. He was married with 2 children and expecting a third, living what appeared to be a family-oriented life. However, he secretly began an affair with a 26-year-old co-worker, Vicky, who mysteriously vanished in July 1994, bringing further shadows to his already troubled past. The search for Vicky began with a chilling discovery from surveillance footage at a grocery store parking lot. In the early hours, around 3 a.m., she was seen entering a black truck driven by a bearded man. Detectives believed this was the last sighting of her, and they quickly started investigating her close connections. Witnesses recalled seeing Vicky that morning, getting into John's truck. Further analysis confirmed the vehicle belonged to him, prompting the police to bring John in for questioning. During the interrogation, John admitted to having a secret relationship with Vicky, but claimed he had dropped her off at home safely on the night she vanished. Weeks passed with no sign of Vicky until a passerby discovered suspicious drag marks in a field. Following the trail, he found white sneakers, a woman's clothing, and trash bags emitting a foul odor. When he moved closer, his horror grew as he spotted a human skull partially exposed among the debris. The man immediately alerted the police, who confirmed the remains belonged to Vicky. Although decomposition limited forensic findings, indications pointed toward foul play, especially since her bra was found around her neck, suggesting it may have been used to strangle her. Determined to solve the case, detectives pressed John to take a polygraph, but he refused. Despite examining his truck, forensic limitations of the era rendered results inconclusive, leaving detectives frustrated. John remained their prime suspect. Days later, he attempted to take his own life by overdosing on pills and alcohol. In a subsequent interview, he confessed to suffering from blackouts, during which he feared he might have committed violent acts he couldn't recall. He speculated he could have hurt Vicky during one of these episodes. Eventually, he faced charges but struck a deal with prosecutors, pleading guilty to involuntary manslaughter. On May 8, 1995, he was sentenced to 8 to 15 years in prison, the maximum punishment possible for his case. During sentencing, he offered an apology to Vicky's family, describing her death as a tragic accident. While incarcerated, John attended therapy sessions, where he divulged disturbing fantasies about harming women and having post-mortem sexual interactions. Despite these alarming confessions, no further action was taken. After serving 12 years, he was released on February 11, 2007, with records indicating he had successfully completed programs for violent offenders. However, his son Gabriel expressed deep concerns, warning in a televised interview that his father was mentally unwell and shouldn't be released. Despite this family warning, John was freed and moved northward in Michigan, finding solace in religion. He settled near Montesano, assuming the role of pastor in a small, tight-knit congregation that came to view him as a reformed man. Soon he began a relationship with Sally, Rebecca's mother, sharing only a carefully crafted version of his past. He claimed he'd once had a minor legal issue, explaining it away as a misunderstanding involving a girlfriend's overdose. This story painted him as a victim of unfortunate circumstances, garnering trust and sympathy from those around him. Sally grew closer to him, even agreeing to a commitment ceremony, while Rebecca continued her life, welcoming her son, Conway, in 2009 at age 21. Though her relationship with Conway's father eventually ended, Rebecca worked hard to provide a loving home for her son. She pursued cosmetology certification and rose to a managerial role in a retail store in Mount Pleasant, securing a stable life that allowed her to purchase a mobile home. By 2010, Rebecca met Aaron Quinn, a supportive partner who brought joy to her and Conway's lives. Her life seemed idyllic. She had a loving son, a home, a successful career, and a supportive family and friends, especially her mother and her mother's fiancé, who became a grandfatherly figure to Conway. However, beneath John's outward persona of kindness and religious devotion, his dark fantasies lingered, hidden from everyone but poised to resurface. On October 31, 2012, Rebecca was eagerly looking forward to Halloween, a holiday that had always held special memories for her. Her 3-year-old son, Conway, had chosen his costume, and she had carefully decorated her home in anticipation. That day, Rebecca, then 24, had arranged to work the morning shift so she could spend the evening trick-or-treating with Conway. However, the day took a troubling turn when she didn't show up for work, highly unusual for her. Concerned, one of her co-workers tried to reach her but couldn't, raising even more alarm. Worried that she might need help, some co-workers and her fiancé, Aaron, went to her home to check on her. Upon arrival, they found the door locked and her car parked nearby in a bar's parking lot. When they asked the bar staff, they were told Rebecca hadn't been there. With mounting concern, they contacted her landlord, who agreed to unlock her door. Once inside, they noticed her favorite purse, a gift from Aaron, left behind, something she would rarely go without. With uncertainty growing, her family decided to report her disappearance to the police. But since she was an adult, authorities held off until 4 p.m., the time she was supposed to pick up Conway. When she failed to show up, they launched a full search. As detectives began investigating her home and car, they found unsettling signs: a red stain on the carpet that had been partly cleaned, and the driver's seat in her car adjusted unusually far back, inconsistent with her small stature. These clues suggested that something serious had happened and that it likely involved someone close to her. Friends and family were baffled as to who could want to harm such a well-loved young woman. Detectives first interviewed those closest to Rebecca, including Conway's father and Aaron. Aaron expressed deep concern, cooperating fully and sharing every detail he could remember. He mentioned that he had spoken to Rebecca the previous night and everything seemed normal, but his messages to her that morning remained unread, suggesting her phone was either off or out of service. Conway's father mentioned that John, the family's pastor, had dropped off Conway that morning, a common Wednesday routine. Following this lead, detectives questioned John, who said he arrived around 6:30 a.m. but claimed he didn't see Rebecca as she was in the bathroom. His story seemed plausible, yet detectives noticed injuries on his nose and hands, which he explained were from a minor accident while fixing his trailer. Despite his cooperative appearance, co-workers reported Rebecca had often shared discomfort about John. Aaron also confided that John had been displaying increasingly obsessive behavior, always finding excuses to be around. With suspicions growing, detectives asked John to take a polygraph. He hesitated but eventually agreed. During the test, He admitted to a criminal history, including an attempt on a young girl's life, though he downplayed the severity. This revelation raised red flags as he offered conflicting versions of his past. When further questioned, John's responses revealed underlying hostility toward women, casting him as the investigation's main focus. When polygraph results suggested deception, detectives confronted him, but he continued to deny any involvement. With the case gaining urgency, investigators obtained a search warrant and found more evidence in his vehicle, including suspicious stains that appeared to be blood and other incriminating items. Yet, John clung to his innocence, even asking his congregation to pray for Rebecca, who was still officially considered missing. Despite his resistance, John's resolve began to crumble. Using emotional tactics, investigators described in graphic detail the decomposition process a body would undergo in Michigan's warm climate. Gradually, he seemed willing to open up, with his defenses cracking under the intense questioning. This tactic proved effective as John eventually broke down and confessed, providing chilling details. Officers who worked on the case later described his confession as a disturbing blend of cynicism and horror. He spoke openly about his unsettling urges, sharing that he'd harbored fantasies of necrophilia and that, in the weeks leading up to Halloween, he had begun experiencing renewed violent sexual desires, specifically targeting Rebecca. He claimed that on October 31st, he felt an overwhelming urge to act on these dark impulses. For the detectives, however, this was not merely a sudden compulsion. His actions showed signs of premeditation and a deep-seated hostility toward women. According to John's account, he arrived at Rebecca's trailer early that morning. Unaware of his intentions, she let him in. During their conversation, he took out a hidden rubber mallet and struck her, knocking her unconscious. While she lay defenseless, he placed a nylon zip tie around her neck, tightening it until she died. He then proceeded to carry out his grim objective of abusing her body. Planning to dispose of her remains, he loaded her into his vehicle. Initially, he intended to leave her at a bar to stage the crime scene but changed his mind, opting to abandon her in a remote ditch among pine trees near a highway intersection. After disposing of her body, John returned to Rebecca's trailer, woke her son Conway and dressed him in his Halloween costume, maintaining a facade of normalcy. He then took Conway to his father as usual, hoping to avoid suspicion. Authorities eventually located Rebecca's body, and a forensic examination confirmed strangulation as the cause of death. Additionally, evidence of sexual assault was found, further heightening the severity of the crime. Although John initially denied the assault, he later claimed he had been out of control and could barely recall his actions. Following his confession, he was given a chance to speak with Rebecca's mother, Sally. In that conversation, he coldly told her she had been the love of his life, hinting that they would likely never see each other again. The sheer brutality and betrayal inherent in John's actions devastated the community. News of his crime shocked those who had once seen him as a respected spiritual leader, unaware of his hidden darkness. The tragedy ignited a broader discussion about flaws in the justice system, particularly the lack of oversight that allowed a man with a violent past to be released without any warning to the public. Many, including his first known victim, Teresa, expressed outrage, feeling the system had failed to prevent a foreseeable tragedy. John's own son Gabriel had previously warned of the danger his father posed, convinced he would eventually return to violence. Amid the outcry, Rebecca's loved ones faced the painful task of saying goodbye. They held a candlelight vigil to honor her memory, followed by a funeral at the Midland Methodist Church. Aaron's mother revealed that he had purchased an engagement ring, intending to propose on Halloween, a day Rebecca cherished. Mourners described her as a young woman with a kind, angelic spirit, always willing to lend a hand. Her friends set up a donation page to cover funeral expenses and establish a trust fund for Conway. On November 8, 2012, John was transferred to the district court for a preliminary hearing to determine if there was probable cause for the case to proceed to circuit court on charges of open murder and first-degree premeditated murder. However, the hearing was postponed to allow for a psychiatric evaluation to determine his competency and criminal responsibility. By early 2013, the evaluation deemed him mentally fit for trial. On January 23, he waived his preliminary hearing, and on March 27, following a plea deal with the prosecution, he pleaded guilty to a reduced charge of second-degree murder, leading to a shorter trial. During the proceedings, prosecutors revealed that John had spent 2 weeks planning Rebecca's murder. According to his sworn statement, John told detectives he had consumed several beers before the attack and had watched adult content featuring violent scenes, including images of lifeless bodies. Officers who were part of the case described his confession as a chilling mix of arrogance and terror. He admitted to disturbing urges, describing fantasies of necrophilia and stating that, in the weeks before Halloween, he had begun to experience violent sexual impulses directed specifically at Rebecca. On October 31st, he said he felt an overwhelming compulsion to act, though detectives believed his actions were premeditated, stemming from deep resentment toward women. According to his account, early that morning, John knocked on Rebecca's trailer door, and, unsuspecting, she let him in. While they talked, he struck her, rendering her unconscious. While she lay defenseless, he placed a nylon zip tie around her neck, strangling her to death to carry out his twisted desires. He discarded her purse, phone, and car keys in a dumpster at the trailer park, while the other items were left near the site where her body was later found. John then drove her car to a bar parking lot nearby to stage the scene, making it appear as if she had been taken against her will. A former long-haul trucking colleague testified about John's behavior, mentioning only one instance of aggression when John verbally lashed out at a Department of Transportation worker over a flat tire. While generally sociable, the colleague described John as a deviant, frequently seeking out sex workers during stops, a behavior he had exhibited even back in their Navy days. After Vicky's disappearance, John had confided in this friend about contemplating suicide, thinking it would spare his family the pain and disgrace of another trial. He said he would wait a week, then have his wife deliver letters explaining everything, though he never followed through. Following witness statements and the arguments from both the prosecution and defense, John's sentencing hearing took place on April 18, 2013. This was an opportunity for Rebecca's family to express their grief. Sally wrote a letter describing her devastation and disbelief at the brutality of the crime and the deep impact of losing her daughter, pleading with the judge to impose the maximum sentence on John. Deborah, Rebecca's sister, urged the creation of a registry for violent offenders like John, stating that if his history had been known, Rebecca might still be alive. After hearing these heartfelt testimonies, John White, then 55, was sentenced to 56 years and 3 months, the maximum allowed under Michigan's plea deal. While a harsh sentence to John and his defense team, Rebecca's family felt it was insufficient given the severity of his actions. However, John once again denied his victims true justice, this time in a more final way. 4 months later, on August 28, 2013, he was found lifeless in his cell. Prison staff attempted resuscitation, but it was too late. The Department of Corrections later confirmed that John, aged 56, had died of asphyxiation by his own hand. John's story is a stark reminder of how individuals with violent histories can exploit plea deals and claims of mental health issues to evade justice, continuing to harm others. His case raises difficult questions about the responsibility of authorities, the monitoring of violent offenders, and how justice systems can sometimes become traps for those they aim to protect. It also underscores the importance of proper prevention and intervention to prevent such tragedies from recurring. Though the system is not flawless, U.S. justice officials have indicated that under current laws, John would have faced longer incarceration, been listed as a violent offender, and his DNA would be included in the national database. With more effective preventative measures in place today, officials hope to reduce the likelihood of similar cases. Thanks for tuning in to Unreal True Crime. If you're intrigued by mysteries from around the world, check out our new channel, Latin Crimes, where we dive into the gripping true crime stories of Latin America. Don't miss out. Subscribe now for more thrilling investigations.